Hello, dear learners. I welcome you all to the module entitled Government's Initiative for Skill Development Courses of the online course Skill Development of the Youth and Their Livelihood. In the previous module, we have discussed some important components of skill development, such as how skill is related to things like employability, etc. Now we are going to discuss a lot of issues related to what are the different initiatives of the government for skill development of the youth. If you look at the objective of this module, we'll find the basic objective is to identify the different ministry-wise skill development schemes by the Government of India. If you see, different ministries. The Government of India has number of ministries, and each ministry, different ministries have different schemes for skill development. So we'll try to find out which are the different schemes for skill development. To also discuss why the Government of India has laid special emphasis on skill development for the youth of India. That's also very important because we need to know. We are talking of India as a country which is, we are proud of our youth. We are looking at demographic dividend as our biggest assets. But demography definitely is the biggest asset. But what happens? We need to skill them. We need to take them in the right path so that we can become we can be the major labor force for the entire world. If we have to become a major labor force for the entire world, what will be required is certain set of skills will be required. What are the skill sets which are required? In fact, it was Prime Minister Narendra Modi who, after he came to power, he realized even more the power of youth. And in that context, since 15th July 2015, we started looking, this government started having a mandate that to skill more than 40 crore people in India in different skills by 2022. And it is because of that at least 10 million Indians, because 10 million Indian youth enter the country's workforce each year, and there's a mandate. We have to see that the youths which are coming out every year, we need to skill them so that they are gainfully employed. So in this context, let us look at various schemes which the ministries have, skill development schemes by the Government of India. Let's go to various schemes which are there. So first, let us look at the primary ministry, which is the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship. Under the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship, the most important scheme which we have is the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which we call the PMKVY. The objective of the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana is to offer meaningful, industry-relevant, skill-based training so that the 10 million people who come to the workforce every year, they get the necessary certification and they are employed. They are basically making them more employable. In fact, looking at skill development, we'll find that the primary objective is to look at the youth available, skill them in areas where they become employable. Because the major problem right now we have is that while there are a lot of people who are educated, a lot of people who are skilled, many of the time we do not have employability skills. So the government has made enough initiatives to understand where the skill requirements are, and accordingly has come up with a number of schemes so that through these schemes people are skilled and they are immediately employable. So one scheme which we had is the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which is the PMKVY. We also have to support that, we have the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Kendras. Now, how does this skilling happen? The skilling happens through various Kaushal Kendras which are there. Then there is the Apprenticeship Training Scheme. Another very important scheme is the Apprenticeship Training Scheme. There are 5 categories of apprentices, namely we have the trade apprentice, we have the graduate technician, technical vocational apprentice, we have the optional trade apprentice. So these are also available, and looking at what is the training skill that we want to get into, there's enough scope for looking at this particular scheme. Not only now I'm telling you, not only from the perspective of understanding the schemes, also looking at some of these schemes which would also suit us. Then there is the Craftsman training scheme, another interesting scheme. It is primarily aimed at the craftsmen. We have a large number of crafts people, but often these craft people, they are not trained, and in the absence of any training, we do not have an understanding to the level to which they are their skilling. So there is, through the craftsman training scheme, you understand the category of their different categories, unskilled, skilled, etc. So you know the level to which they are trained. So there is the craftsman training scheme. Next we have is the skill development initiatives. The skill development initiative aims to provide vocational training. There are courses based on modular employability schemes. So these schemes are becoming very, very flexible in terms of anyone, how at different points of time they can have different programs which they can attend to develop skilled manpower. The industry specific, we have different. So what the ministry has done is that looked at from the industry perspective also. When these skill programs are designed, it is seen that there's a huge interaction, on a large scale interaction is there between the government, the ministries, and the different industry associations. The industry associations are the industry bodies which understands what the industry needs. Another thing which are there is the Rozgar Mela, something very interesting. We have the National Skill Development Corporation under the aegis of the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship, Government of India. Now they keep on organizing these Rozgar Melas. Now what are these Rozgar Melas? They are across the nation providing unemployed youths. It's like a mela in which you have the industry bodies coming, you have the skilled people coming in, there's a portal, and then there's a connect between the job seekers and the job providers. Then there are a number of capacity building schemes. Very interesting. Under the convergence policy of the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship, capacity building, empowerment of the capacity building and technical assistance. Now there are schemes for technical assistance, capacity building. Ministry of Northeastern region has transferred a lot of their schemes to the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship. So there is convergence. This is the parent ministry, which is the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship, which was formed in 2015. So we have this is the capacity building scheme. Then there is also the school initiatives, which is an higher education initiatives. In the school education space, the National Skill Development Corporation has worked with the Ministry of Human Resource Development to restructure the implementation model of skill development and training in schools. Skilling can start at the school. Everyone need not go through the typical academic program. So there are attempts to see right from the school stage itself. You start understanding what are the skill sets which are required, what skills would interest you. So here also a lot of experiments, school initiatives have also been done with the Ministry of Human Resource Development. Then another very interesting initiative is the India International Skill Centers. The government of India is keen to bridge the global shortage. We are saying that as India, our biggest asset is our demography, which is the youth that we have. Now globally there is definitely a shortage of skilled manpower. So India International Skill Centers have been started. Now this initiative is to skill youths from India so that they can be under the Skill India mission, so they can be groomed for take up international assignments also. So there are country-wise assessment is made as to what are the skill requirements. If I may give an example, for example, we know that Japan is a country where the youth's population is dwindling. So it's more a country where we have more and more people above a particular age group. There are also the pre-departure orientation training. Given the need to orient, because as I was saying, these people, suppose there is a group of youth who are going to Japan. So what can happen is that they need to be oriented. These migrant workers need to be oriented about the language, the culture, the do's and don'ts, because every country has their own ways of interaction, etc. So that is another pre-departure orientation training is also another program. It is coordinated by the Ministry of External Affairs in collaboration with the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship, and basically enhances and in collaboration with the National Skill Development Corporation. Then there are also the Advanced Vocational Training Scheme. Now, what is this Advanced Vocational Training Scheme? In order to make people update the people about the advancements, because just as the way we study in a college or a school, we go to a school, then we go to the next level, that is higher secondary, we go to college, we go to post graduation, etc. So similarly in the skill domain also, these advanced vocational training schemes have also been introduced. Then we have the vocational training program for women. See, we all know women, unless and until we are getting more and more women into the fold, the country cannot prosper. 50% of the population are women. So, but then in terms of labor participation, in terms of employment, etc., women are much lesser in number than men. So there are specific programs, vocational training programs specifically for women, because if you look at nothing else, but if you look at women who are skilled, going out, working in factories, the number is still very less. So women training under Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship take care of providing skill training to women in various for aspiring to go to different countries, and also putting up various opportunities which are there for women in different age groups. Then there are schemes for upgradation of ITIs. We all know about the ITIs. Now if you see, there are a lot of ITIs which have been upgraded. The courses were a little outdated till some time back. Now these ITIs are being upgraded, so that through the ITI a lot of learning takes place, and so there are schemes for upgradation of ITIs, and a lot of ITIs in the country have already been upgraded. Flexible Memorandum of Understanding, Flexi MOUs. The scheme allows industries. So this is something with the industry connect in skilling is very important, because without the industry connect in skilling, you are skilling people and they are not employed. For example, any skill program that you take. For example, when we talk about the hospitality sector, for example. Now, hospitality sector, we might be doing skill development program, but hospitality industry would have specific requirements. If you look at the hospitality industry, they would be requiring people in the front office. They would be looking at people at for services. They would be require people for the maintenance of their hotels, etc., bed making, etc. So they will have different categories. So there is another scheme which is the skill strengthening for induced value enhancement. Strive is a World Bank. What is Strive? Let's look at it. So Strive is another scheme, is a World Bank assisted Government of India project. The objective of improving the relevance and efficiency skills training provided by the ITIs and apprenticeship. Then we have the dual system of training. What is this? The dual system provides employable skills to the trainees who pass from ITIs of various trades. Department of Science and Technology encourages ITI and the industry partners to participate within the regular training. So there's a training program going on. There are industry people who can come and be a part of the training program. Then there are schemes for polytechnics. The scheme for polytechnics of submission of the polytechnics under the government, under the Combined Action for Skill Development, have been transferred from the Department of Higher Education, MHRD, in 2017 to the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship and DGT in September 2018, is setting up new polytechnics in underserved and underdeveloped regions, districts. Now this is another scheme specifically for areas which are underserved, underdeveloped. So that's again, on the one hand you have the blanket schemes which are applicable for everyone. And this is another very interesting thing, which is the skill acquisition and knowledge awareness for livelihood promotion, which is the Sankalp. Now, Sankalp is a program of the Ministry of Skill Development with a loan assistance from the World Bank. Now, this is a special project taken up under World Bank, and it aims to improve the skill training qualitatively and quantitatively. So there are a lot of livelihood in it. Everyone would not be going to work in industry. There are a lot of pockets in which there are people are already involved in some sort of livelihood. Is making there is a mainstay. For example, it could be a handloom, a handicraft, agriculture, etc. So the Sankalp scheme is quite flexible from that perspective and helps in understanding the needs and with a flexibility of enhancing skills, so that it not necessarily leads to placement, but it leads to livelihood generation. Another thing is the launch of mainstream aspiration. So, under this government, we have a lot of aspirational districts. So there are certain criteria who's an aspirational district. So this aspirational districts which are lesser developed on various parameters, etc. Then there is this setting up of Indian Institute of Skills. Indian Institute of Skills are being established in the country to enhance the training standards beyond. So these, one is providing skilling, one is providing training, but standardization is also important. So the main role of the Indian Institute of Skills is standardization, hands-on skill training program, where people, so these are also other initiatives being taken up. Then we have a skill loan scheme, which is, it's a paid training skilling program. So there is a flexibility in terms of, and anyone wants to do a paid skilling program. We have been so far talking about mostly programs which are government sponsored. There are also a lot of skill programs where you pay and the private organization starts skill development programs, or they want to go and do a skill development program somewhere under some other university. So trade testing certificate now. It is one of the national assessing body. Now, trade testing certificate is national assessing body. You are skilled, but how does your skill gets assessed? So there is this body. Different. You are the training the skilling programs are done under various schemes like NULM, DDU, GKY, etc. Sector skill councils are there, but then testing and certification is an important element. So there is a body which conducts regular tests. Based on the test, certificates are given, and that makes it sort of like the way we have an educational certificate which says that, okay, your level of understanding is this much. Similarly, there are a lot of trade testing certification. Then we have the academic equivalent of vocational qualification, as I was mentioning earlier also. Then Atmanirbhar skilled employer-employee mapping, ASIM portal. There is a portal. It is an endeavor to improve the information. Often, there's an information gap in terms of where are the skilled people. While on the one hand, people are getting skilled continuously, but if you want to know somewhere that where are the skilled people, how many mapping, what is the number of skilled people that we have at this level, at the next level, etc. So there is a portal which is the ASIM portal. So that one people are registered in that, and employers also get to understand that how many people are involved in it. Then we have the Bharat skill learning platform. Interesting. Bharat skill learning is a central repository of skills which provide NSQF curriculum. So that is also another very important area, which is gives a lot of information. Then we have the Pradhan Mantri Yuva Yojana. So there also it is this is a scheme where it leads to entrepreneurship education. There are a lot of programs which are done on entrepreneurship development. So anyone, skilled person, youth, getting into this program can start their own. Helps in basically from the college level. There's a program on awareness, entrepreneurship development, through which one can start, not necessarily get employed, but can also be self-employed or start their own enterprise. Another very interesting and important thing is the recognition of prior learning, RPL. We have different sectors have people who are already skilled. For example, carpentry, for example. There are a lot of people who already know carpentry, or they are working as carpenters, assistant to carpenters, but they do not have a certification. So under the recognition of prior learning, what they do is that they go and do some test. 1 or 2 days awareness, they do a test as to what level of skills they have, and immediately after that they are given a recognition. If they pass that particular test in that particular whichever sector, they are given a recognition of prior learning. So that certification helps them a lot. Then they can go to the next level also. So this is another scheme. Then we have the National Skill Development Mission. It was launched by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship on July 2015. Its aim is to create convergence across sectors and states in the terms of skill training activities. The NSDC is the main body here. So these are the different types of skill initiatives, particularly by the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship. Now, along with Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship, you also have the various other ministries who are also doing, although there, it is the primary thing has been taken by the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship, but then there are also other programs, other ministries which continue to do some skill development programs. And here we have the Ministry of Skill and Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, and which is the Ministry of MSME. The Ministry of MSME, what do? They have some flagship programs, and amongst the flagship program, one program is the Entrepreneurship cum Skill Development Program. Here the primary objective is that not only are you giving skills to the people, but you are also helping them to become entrepreneurs. So an element of skilling as well as entrepreneurship is given through the Entrepreneurship and Skill Development Program. Then there are also management development programs. Supposing there are enterprises which have already existing, so these entrepreneurs can participate and improve their decision-making capabilities. Suppose they need something, how to manage finance, how to do a marketing, etc. So these are things, a lot of management development programs are done for existing entrepreneurs. Then there is this Assistance to Training Institute scheme, ATI scheme. Now, while we had we have the PMKVY, etc. schemes where you have certain recognized centers of skilling. Similarly, there are training institutes like the NIMSME, KVIC, Tool Room, NSIC. So they also do a lot of training programs. So under the assistance of two training institute scheme, these bodies like NIMSME, KVIC are given training programs, and these institutions on their own start doing training programs and skill and entrepreneurship development programs through the various initiatives. So we have the upskilling programs also, quality management, we have the Mahila Kaur Yojana. So these are also other schemes which we have. So we talked about the micro, small and medium MSME ministry. We talked about the MSD ministry. Then there are the Ministry of Human Resource Development. They have programs like the apprenticeship scheme. Interesting program through which you build up apprenticeship training. They are basically technicians, etc. And apprenticeship is also done in industries. So that helps them to become more employment ready. Then there are schemes for vocationalizers, vocationalization of schools and secondary education. These are centrally sponsored schemes and provides diversification of education. Now in the context of new education policy, these become extremely important. These schemes will find more value and meaning now in the context of the new education policy. Then there are schemes for community development through polytechnics. The polytechnics are already doing various vocational training programs, but community development programs through polytechnics is another initiative where you do skilling programs in the community, help them have generate livelihood, etc. Then we have the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana for technical institutes, PMKVY 2. We've already talked about PMKVY, so this is PMKVY 2 with some other, where it is basically implementing PMKVY for technical institutions, that is PMKVY 2. Then we have the National Employability Enhancement Mission, NEEM, is an apprenticeship program which helps those enrolled in educational institutions to get placed, a freehand experience of working in industrial setups. And then we have the Ministry of Rural Development, similar schemes, which is the Din Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushalta Yojana. So basically skilling for the rural areas. These type of skillings are where, it could be agri-related, it could be more for service-related in the rural areas, etc. Then there are certain centers like the Rural Self-Employment and Training Institutes, which is the RSETI. Very important role that they play. These are primarily centers in which you also get hands-on to start your own enterprise. You're skilled as well as get an opportunity to get a hands-on experience to start your own enterprise. Then we have there are the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. So we have talked about skilling of youth. We have talked about skilling for people in the livelihood sector. Then there is a Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, where you have specific skilling programs for the farmers. There are schemes like the Agri Clinic. Farmers are doing farming, they are in the agriculture, but then there is a need for starting agri clinics, agri business centers. So where you're basically giving services to the farmers. So there's specific schemes for agri clinic and agri business. Then extension farm schools are also there. So is farming itself, one looks at farming as a profession. So through farm schools, then you get into understand, you start business to service the farming sector. So that's the basic idea behind the schemes under Ministry of Agriculture. Then Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty, similar schemes. I'm not going into details of every scheme, but then basically the targets are different. Here the target is primarily the urban youth. So we have schemes specifically for the rural youth, we have specifically for general youth, we have specifically for the urban poverty alleviation also. So we have the schemes under NULM, which is for the urban youth. Then Ministry of Commerce and Industry also has certain schemes like the Indian Leather Development Program. So there are certain resources that we have as a country. Leather is one. So there are schemes specifically for people to get into the leather industry, get skilled and start their business. Then there is the Ministry of Donor, which is specifically, as I was mentioning earlier also. Then you have the Ministry of Education and Information, which are schemes for financial assistance for skill development. So anything to do with electronic system design and manufacturing, there are schemes for that. Then you have the Ministry of Home Affairs, which has a very unique scheme, particularly for the youth, unemployed youth of Jammu and Kashmir, which is the UDAN scheme, where they are specifically looking at giving employment, skilling people of unemployed youth of the Jammu and Kashmir region. Right now it's operational only in Jammu and Kashmir. We also have the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, where there are schemes for different skilling training for persons with disabilities. Then you have the Ministry of Textiles, which are doing again specifically for textile people involved in the textile sector. Then Ministry of Tourism also has. So basically if one looks at the entire gamut of schemes which are there, the Ministry of Tribal Affairs has specific programs for the tribal youths. So these are basically the different schemes for skill development.